I'm now very pleased to introduce our next segment, which is a conversation between three leaders of companies and an employers' organisation who each made an action pledge. So I'd very much like to welcome our three guests, Ms. Lena Pripkovac, Chief Sustainability Officer of IKEA Group, Mr. Mikio Sakai, President and CEO of Fuji Oil Holdings, and Mr. Khaled Abdelazim, Executive Director of the Federation of Egyptian Industries. Thanks to you all for being with us. This will be a short conversation, but an important one. As the ILO's Director General has explained, for the first time in 20 years, we're witnessing an increase in child labour. Your organisations all made an action pledge. Can each of you tell us the single most important impact on the ground in practice that your pledge is intended to have this year in accelerating change on child labour? Ms. Pripkovac, let me come first to you.
Yes, thank you. It's very heartbreaking news to see that the trend is going in the wrong direction, of course. I'm very happy that we can be part now to focus on the acceleration that needs to happen. In our pledge, we've been working, of course, with the elimination of child labor for over 20 years, but also realized that now we even need to accelerate even more. So in our pledge, we focus specifically on strengthening the children's right in our human rights due diligence processes. And as was mentioned before here, that goes further down in the supply chain. IKEA has a lot of industries connected to our business. We're also looking in specifically to young workers. We know that a lot of young workers are the age under 18, but still within the minimum working age, are unemployed 3 times more than others. So we've been working both in Vietnam and Indonesia, and also looking into other programs in order to actually make sure that there is decent work for young workers as well as education. Then I think the most important part has already been mentioned here today is the collaboration with others. And we are also very happy to be part of the child labor platform, realizing that this is a topic that has to be collaborated on and really make sure that we work on the ground and actions together and not just words.
Thank you. Mr. Sakai, let me come to you, please.
Okay. Thank you, Rachel. And I'm very happy and honored to be invited to join such an important panel today. As Fuji Oil Group is the 3rd largest producer of chocolate in the world, and the cacao bean and palm oil are key raw material. We are well aware of the child labor issue associated with the production of these products. We have committed to removing the worst form of child labor from our supply chain by 2025, and to eliminating all forms of child labor by 2030 through our responsibility cacao bean procurement policy, which was formulated in 2018. To achieve these goals, we currently apply CLMRS, which is a Child Labor Monitoring and Remediation System, as a tool to obtain metrics for traceability and transparency for cacao bean sourcing, and have achieved 26% CLMRS coverage in our cacao bean supply chain, and have set the goal at 70% for this year. We have taken measures to address this serious issue over many years now, and have expanded our efforts over the course of this time. Now that we know that the number of children involved in child labor, especially in Africa, has increased now, which means that we need to accelerate our effort. However, our society and stakeholders still do not have enough awareness of this serious issue yet. So we hope that our pledge this year to reiterate our commitment will send a strong message to society and stakeholders, especially to consumers, that child labor is a serious social challenge and must be stopped and that both consumers and businesses has an important role in resolving this social issue, I think. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Abdelazim, please, what is the most important impact that you hope your pledge will have at FEI?
Thank you very much. Really, the Federation of Egyptian Industries represents the interest of industrialists in Egypt, which 95 of them are SMEs. So more recognition by member enterprises to the UN guiding principles on business and human rights, and how can they contribute to child labor mediation, whether in their own operations or in their supply chains, need to be focused on. So this is the impact that we are targeting. We want to educate our small and medium-sized enterprises on these principles, on the guiding principles, so that they can integrate it in their company policies and HR policies.
Thank you. I think clear messages from all of you, including on issues of partnerships, of robust due diligence, and of course of awareness raising and education, depending on your position. Mr. Abdelazim, let me stay with you. We just heard from the Director General that Africa remains the region with the highest incidence of child labour. And of course, this is a very complex issue to address, but if you can, what in your view is the most urgent action that is needed in the African context in particular to make progress on this global challenge?
Yeah, it's true what His Excellency Mr. Guy Ryder has highlighted. 72.1 million children in Africa are still involved in child labor, and 31.5 are in hazardous works. So Africa needs lots of efforts. I think that a better business environment that encourages investors to come to Africa, which is the starting point to alleviate poverty, because poverty is the main root behind child labor. So alleviation of poverty, which is the main cause for child labor, is the first priority. The second one is set free basic education and apprenticeship programs for all children in Africa. Should be a continental goal, and incentives to enterprises to participate and contribute to this should be also given.
Thank you for those ideas. Coming back to the role of the private sector and individual companies, we know and we've heard that quite a large number of businesses have made action pledges of various kinds. But what we really need, as we've also heard, is to turn those into action on the ground. As two companies that have made pledges and are focused on action, how, in your views, do you think we can get more business leaders really acting on the commitments they've made? Ms. Kovac, what would you suggest?
First of all, I think actually long-term commitments are extremely important in here. With the long-term commitment, you will also be able to show what you can do. So good examples that needs to be scaled and collaborate with others, you can also show what that actually means. I think this is one of the triggers. I mean, the fact that you are on a long-term track and looking into these topics, you can bring many stakeholders with you during that time. And we also learn from each other. I mean, we have many different local situations that differ. So as a global company in many industries, there are certain things that works very well, and other places it's very challenging. So with the long-term commitment to scale these changes, you will also have to have many different partners. So maybe the biggest and most important one is that the good example speaks by itself. And I hope that that could be shared by many. And the Global Compact is an excellent way of sharing those good examples.
Thank you. Sakai-san, let me come to you, please. What in your view is most important?
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. So this is a very, very important question. So biggest driver to act on the due diligence commitment is always reiterate our vision and purpose, which at Fuji Oil is to work for the well-being of society. But to do that, we need support and pressure from our stakeholders, especially the shareholders and consumers. we conducted human rights due diligence twice in 2017 and 2020, and found that our supply chain is exposed to serious human rights risk. So we explained to shareholders that child labor is not only a social problem, but also the very serious business risk now, and is facing more regulation, such as the EU due diligence legislation. And together with our client food companies and retailers, we should engage with consumers and explain that child labor-free chocolate is more satisfactory to eat.
Thank you. And I think that's an important point, which is we're seeing, I think now, the real overlap between very severe risks to people, in this case to children, some of the most vulnerable, and to young people, as you were saying, Ms. Pripkovac, coming together with business risk, with regulatory and certainly reputational risk as well. So maybe that does create indeed more of an opportunity for action. Mr. Abdelazim, the Director General also mentioned, the High Commissioner mentioned, the challenge of child labour often being in the lowest tiers of the supply chain, certainly in small and medium businesses, and particularly in the informal sector. And that can be much harder to address through typical due diligence systems, although of course not impossible. What do you think are the 2 or 3 really essential steps to tackle child labour in those particular types of labour contexts?
Yeah, I think that the most essential steps to tackle child labor in these labor contexts are addressing the root causes. Many informal enterprises, many informal businesses can be described as vulnerable businesses. So inequality in business brings inequality in practices. We need to give more focus on strengthening small and medium-sized enterprises, formalizing the informal, not for the sake of collecting more taxes, but for the sake of providing an opportunity for growth that will help or enable enterprises to have more responsible business conducts and work ethics. In addition to that, working in partnerships with SMEs, and if I can add finally, extend social protection to all. Social protection in society is not only addressed for individuals, but for small firms as well, that can be hit by such incidents as the pandemic, which will affect their businesses, forcing them to reduce cost by all means, even if they are gonna employ child labor. So the point is, whenever there is more programs for social protection, there will be a better room for monitoring the performance of these firms and asking them to achieve higher level of compliance.
Thank you. I'd like to come back to what you mentioned before, Ms. Pripkovac, into IKEA's pledge, which is really focused on, amongst other things, on creating decent work opportunities for younger workers, as you were saying, a really important cohort. Can you tell us a bit more about this aspect of your pledge?
I think it actually goes very closely to the taking a risk as a company as well. I mean, many companies do not want to employ young workers because you are looking into the age of 18, because it does require extra effort. But it's also those topics we have to tackle in order to eliminate child labor and also make a safe environment for young workers. So we have been working with different programs within Vietnam and Indonesia, and we will strengthen that and see if we can do even more. I also would like to add that when we are in the COVID-19 pandemic situation, that we also need to separate what is crisis management and maybe financial support in a short period of time, and what is the long-term focus and ability to actually keep track on these programs for, unfortunately, a long time until everything is eliminated. So yes, we will continue to work very much with the decent work for young workers, because we think this is one of the root cause of very severe, unstable situation for young workers.
Thank you very much. And I think reminding us in your comments of the need to take both a long-term perspective, but also to really tackle aspects of this work that seem hard or difficult and that need more resources, because I think we're all very aware of the urgency. Thank you very much to all three of you for your commitment.